State of emergency has now been declared in BC as thousands of people remain displaced from their homes in communities cut off by catastrophic flooding. The power of the water driven by climate change has devastated lives and wiped out critical infrastructure.
Hey everybody, so it's November 20th and this whole week has just been really interesting. Since the last video where I showed you guys the off-channel, how the salmon are safe in the channel, the high water event has turned into a pretty epic flood, a flood of the century pretty much. As of right now, there's still quite a bit of flooding going on around us. The amount of losses and damages is just devastating for a lot of families. Our family has been pretty lucky. We live in a little higher up than the floodplain. So we're not really affected by it, besides being the inconvenience that we can't really go anywhere right now. All the highways are flooded and we kind of cut off from the rest of the world. But that is a tiny inconvenience compared to what's going on for other people. I've waited for a few days, just sitting at home, didn't want to get in the way of the rescuers and all the repairs that's going on outside. But finally made it down to the river again. I'm in the upper Chilliwack River watershed, and I'm just walking into one of the trails right now to check out one of the spawning channels and see how the fish are doing. Because the water has dropped, the water has cleared up, we should be able to see fish today. Temperature has dropped quite a bit today. I think it's around 3 or 4 degrees right now at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So quite a bit cooler. There's a bit of snow, frost on the ground. It's nice to see. So here we are. This is one of several spawning channels in the upper Chilliwack River. So what's going on here is that we have the head of the channel right here. So that joins up with the main river. So the water is coming from the main stem of the river coming down this way. The channel runs for a couple kilometers down and rejoins the river at the very bottom. So when salmon come back, they will enter the channel through the river at the very bottom. And they will use this channel to spawn, to lay their eggs in the gravel. This is a stable environment for these fish because you can see we've got lots of trees around us. These trees absorb water when it rains too much. So while everywhere else floods, the water level actually doesn't rise or too much over time. So it provides good protection for these fish. And also the trees act as coverage. It keeps the water temperature low. And so when these juvenile salmon are sitting here waiting, feeding before they go out into the ocean, there's a fair amount of food. It keeps the water cold. It's just good protection for these fish, and we need to have more habitat like this. In the last 100 years or so, we've been removing a lot of these habitat for urban development, especially in the lower river. That's, if you want to see wild salmon being sustainable, you need to have more channels like this. It's fantastic. You can see fish just, quietly swimming right by, right there. I love this place. I've been hearing so much bad news in the last few days, how everything just gone wrong. But when you come to this place, it's completely secluded from everywhere else. And these salmon couldn't care less. They're just doing their thing. Here's a coho salmon, a jack, another coho jack. Yeah, probably already spawned out. So here's another spot. I can see at least 3 dead chum salmon spawned out right here. Actually 4, I can see 4 now. That's great to see because we are having a low chum salmon return to begin with here. A little trout just went by, so it's great to see that some chum salmon is spawning as well. This is the head of the channel, and right away I can see about 20 coho schooling up in this area. There's a fair amount of gravel a little further down, and you can see them spawning there. There's a few jacks in here as well, pairing up the females, which is great to see. Fantastic. So here we have quite a few adult coho spawning in one little area. There are females digging reds, and then you got quite a few males fighting over, the big males fighting over each other. Then you see a little jack, see a little jack right there? The coho jack just patiently waiting, and once in a while it will swim right in, sneak right in and fertilize the eggs. So just a different strategy to pass on the offspring. Oh, look, it's going right in there. Look. And it's gonna swim out again. There, see? Sneaky little guy. Nothing wrong with being small. That was fantastic. Let's head over to the next spot. I think we're gonna see even more fish further down. We're gonna check out the side channel a little further downstream from where we were before. Right here, the channel actually runs right along the road, and it actually looks like a little ditch if you don't actually know much about fish. In the past, this channel has always had pinks. Actually, I was back here in early October, and I did see pink salmon here spawning, so which is great. There should be coho and there should be chum salmon. Water still looks pretty clear here, so I'm hopeful. Let's go take a look. Yeah, there's fishing here. That's great. Fantastic. Look. So this channel is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. There's logs, overhanging logs protecting the fish. The flow is low, it's water is clear, which is exactly what these fish need. Just in this short stretch, we're looking at around maybe 50 feet of water. I can see at least 20 fish. So there's one chum salmon in front of me, and there's like 3 coho over there, a few more down there, a few coho hiding beside the chum as well, and a few up this way as well. I saw one coho jack going by further down. From what I can see, yeah, all of the fish except maybe one over there are all wild fish, and that is why it is so important that when you catch a wild salmon, and then a salmon with an adipose fin on it, you have to release it carefully, because if you do so, you're gonna end up with fish like these up here spawning. Gravel with clean water. So this is the combination, the formula for good spawning results. This is actually the most I've seen in the last 2 or 3 years. You know, partly also due to the fact that we have seen way more wild coho salmon coming back this year as well. And it's great that these fish have made it. They made it up here before the flood, and they totally protected. They'll spawn peacefully over here, and these will bring back even more fish in the future. Okay, we're gonna go further upstream. Take a look. There's still more fish. I mean, 3 over here, 2 over there. Look. Just this particular stretch, this little tiny run right here, is probably about 10 coho sitting in there this morning. And you can see the reds, little indentations on the gravel. They've just been digging. Good stuff. Well, if you made it to this part of the video, I'm gonna assume that you enjoyed this little trip to the spawning channel today. With so much focus on the disaster, it's becoming quite negative over social media, and I thought I should share something that's quite positive, just to give everyone some hope, and also to motivate you to do something about our fish. This isn't suggesting that all of the salmon have been saved during this flood. In fact, it is quite the opposite. The Vedder River pink salmon run this year was pretty strong. Up to 8 million fish came back to our rivers, so it was pretty pleasant to watch them spawning back in mid-September to early October. Unfortunately, these fish tend to be main stem spawners rather than side channel spawners, so we can pretty much assume that a lot of the eggs have been washed away or crushed by rocks, and we're gonna see the impacts of that in 2 years from now when they start coming back. Pink salmon generally are pretty resilient, and because their life cycle is pretty short, they tend to bounce back pretty quickly if given the chance. So we gotta make every effort to conserve these fish if the run is indeed quite low in 2 years from now. As for coho and chum salmon, they tend to be side channel spawners, especially for coho salmon, and their spawning time is a little later from mid-November to December. As you can see in this video, a lot of fish have been saved during this flood event. This is a good reminder that historically in the last 100 years, we have destroyed a lot of the freshwater habitat for these fish, for both the spawning fish and also for juvenile fish where they can find protection. So we gotta make more effort to bring back some of these spawning channels, some of this freshwater habitat, what we call critical habitat, as an insurance policy if we do get flood events like this again. And it looks like we will, because of climate change, the frequency of these extremes, the heavy rainfalls and the dry periods have become more frequent now. So it's up to us to give this fish a fin up so they can survive under these environmental changes. So, because of what has happened this past week, many of you have been asking me, what can I do for our salmon? Well, there are in fact many things you can do, and here are some of my suggestions. My very first suggestion is to join a local watershed stewardship group. These groups could be operating a community hatchery, or they could be doing habitat restoration, even river cleanups or spawner surveys such as counting spawning fish or counting juvenile fish. Every little bit counts. If you could just spend a few hours a month helping out at these groups, it can be very, very beneficial for our fish. Now the fish decline problem is worldwide, and if you look at this problem at a global scale, you can get pretty overwhelmed by it. And when we get overwhelmed, two things that can happen. One is that we just simply give up, or the other one, we procrastinate, we delay the solution. You know, there's like 200 rhinos left, there's still time to save them. You know, a couple years later, there's 50 left. Okay, there's still a bit more time, but by the time when it gets too low and we decide to take action, it's often too late. So the time to act is right now. Now, conservation effort is not, there isn't a finish line. It's a lifelong process. It's I've seen people dedicating their entire life, making huge differences. And actually, I have a video coming up in a couple weeks from now featuring one of these groups in the Lower Mainland. And hopefully, by watching that, you'll get inspired and join the effort to save our salmon. Now, if you don't have the time or energy to help out, donating money to a group such as the Fraser Valley Watersheds Coalition can be really helpful. These groups are involved in habitat restoration, and they're always looking for money to get projects started. My third suggestion is to become a vocal advocate for these fish. Just having conversations about our salmon with your friends, family, and colleagues can be very beneficial. Education is key, and by keeping these fish in the conversation, you'll keep them alive because these fish don't have a voice. Write your local MPs, write your local politicians when challenges such as this arise, and we just gotta make lots of noise for them. My last suggestion is to make changes in our everyday life, myself included. I'm always educating myself, trying to do better, because every single action that we take has some kind of impact on our resources, including fish. For example, if you wash your car on the driveway, the chemical runoff, the detergent that goes into the storm drain, eventually will make the way into the side channel, the spawning channels, and the river. And if too many people do it, if the concentration gets too high, it can have an impact on our juvenile salmon. Choose what you eat carefully. Buy local, and I always encourage people to go out and fish and harvest your own fish in a sustainable fishery instead of buying commercially caught, frozen, processed fish. That is probably the worst way of consuming fish because it's just simply not sustainable. That's enough fishing for today. If you made it this far in this video, thank you for watching. These videos are usually not as popular as my fishing episodes for obvious reasons, but I am passionate about fish. I really enjoy sharing my knowledge when it comes to the topics on conservation and fish biology, so I hope you do too. If you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel, please do so. I really appreciate your support, and if you have any other ideas, suggestions, or questions, leave them on the bottom in the comment section. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And until next time, good luck fishing.